You know that moment when someone crosses a line with you and, instead of drawing a boundary, you start explaining, joking, or minimizing it because you're scared they'll leave, get angry, or make things awkward? That's the trap. You tolerate disrespect because you fear loss more than you respect yourself. In work, dating, family, and even group chats, you quietly swallow things that hurt you, and then you wonder why people keep doing them. They keep doing them because your standard lives only in your head, not in your words and actions. In North America especially, where jobs move fast, rent is high, and dating apps are endless, it can feel like you're replaceable. So you cling. You accept late replies that sting, jokes that cut a little too deep, accidental touches, last-minute cancellations, partners raising their voice, managers texting you at 10:45 p.m. and calling it urgent. You tell yourself, if I push back, I'll lose them, lose this shot, or look difficult. The fear of loss silently trains you to lower your standard, inch by inch. A Stoic approach reverses that order. You put your standard first, outcomes second. As Marcus writes in Meditations 5.20, your mind and choices are yours, other people's reactions are not. When you organize your life around your standard instead of your fear, you become calmer, clearer, and strangely more attractive to people who also respect themselves. You stop begging to be chosen and start deciding where you invest your time. Today, you're going to build something very specific, a one-sentence standard you can remember under stress, a simple two-step enforcement pattern, and a calm exit script you can use when someone keeps crossing the line. You are not going to turn into a loud, confrontational person. You're going to become someone who quietly holds their line and, when needed, walks away without drama. That's what I'll call the walk-away rule. Say it once, then let your feet do the rest. Before we go further, one important note so you know what you're getting: educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, or legal advice. Across the next sections, you'll practice how to define your one-sentence standard so it's simple and real for your life, how to communicate it once without begging or defending, how to use a two-step enforcement pattern that keeps you out of endless arguments, how to walk away calmly in real North American situations like late-night texts, work Slack messages, rent and money conflicts, and family drama, and finally how to apply all of this in one realistic scenario so you can see your future. Behavior clearly. First we'll define what a standard actually is for you, next we'll turn that standard into clear words, then we'll build your two-step enforcement pattern, after that we'll drill the walk-away rule in work, dating, and money situations, and finally we'll pull it together in one practical story you can mirror in your own life. The first move is to make your standard one sentence, not a speech. The claim is simple: decide how you allow people to treat you, then say it in a way you can remember even when your heart is racing. If your standard needs a paragraph of explanation, you won't use it when it matters, and the other person will sense you're unsure. This works because the brain under stress loves short scripts. When you feel disrespected, your nervous system jumps into fight, flight, or freeze. A one-sentence standard is like a preset: you don't need to invent words, you just press play. It also signals to the other person that this is not a debate or a performance, it's how you live. As Seneca reminds his friend Lucilius, character is shown in clear, consistent actions, not long arguments. Here's a simple line you can adapt: my standard is that I stay in relationships and conversations where I'm treated with basic respect. That's it. No attack. No drama. You're not blaming, you're describing how you live. Imagine someone in Seattle dating through apps. They match with someone on Hinge, have a good first date, then notice that, in texting, the person makes little jokes about their body or their job. At first they let it slide. Then, one night, another comment lands hard: relax, you're too sensitive, anybody else would be grateful to date me. The old version of them would pull back, second-guess themselves, and maybe over-explain why that hurt. Instead, they reply, my standard is that I stay in relationships and conversations where I'm treated with basic respect. They don't send 5 follow-up texts. They let that sentence sit. On the other side, the person now understands a line exists. Your small action today is this: write your own one-sentence standard in a note on your phone using the words, my standard is that I, and keep it where you can see it. Read it 3 times out loud so your body gets used to saying it. Next, you need a simple 2-step enforcement pattern, so your standard isn't just a slogan. The claim here is, you give one clear notice, then you change your behavior. You are not repeating yourself 5 times, sending long essays, or waiting for the perfect mood. You state the line once, then you act. This works because boundaries without enforcement become empty threats, and people quickly learn they can ignore them. When the pattern is consistent, first you name what's not okay, then you calmly step back, others learn your signals and adjust or drift away. Epictetus taught that you cannot control whether people like your limits, but you can control whether you live by them. That's where your freedom is. Your script for the 2-step pattern can sound like this: I'm not okay with that. If it happens again, I'll step back from this. You are not insulting them, diagnosing them, or using big labels. You're saying how you respond. Picture someone in Toronto working in a marketing agency. Their manager keeps pinging them in Slack late at night about non-urgent tasks, adding, "It'll only take a minute." They've already been answering, feeling resentful, but scared to say anything. One evening at 10:30 p.m., another message comes in. Instead of ignoring it or snapping, they reply, "I'm not okay with getting non-urgent messages this late. If it keeps happening, I'll only respond during my work hours." The manager reacts with a thumbs-up emoji and mild annoyance. A few days later, another late ping shows up at 10:45 p.m. This time, the employee doesn't reply until 9:15 a.m. the next morning, sticking to their word. Over a few weeks, the late pings slow down because the pattern is clear: one notice, then changed behavior. Your tiny action today is to write your version of that 2-step script in your own words and save it just under your 1-sentence standard. Practice saying both together once, as if you're sending a text or speaking calmly in person. Now you need a response rule for disrespect. You address it once, then you stop negotiating your value. The claim is that you will no longer keep explaining why disrespect hurts you, you will say it once and let your behavior carry the rest. You are shifting from convincing mode to choosing mode. This works because arguments about respect usually turn into debates about your tone, your sensitivity, or whether the other person meant it that way. When you let the conversation spiral there, you abandon your standard and start defending your right to feel hurt. A firm, short response followed by a pattern of disengaging tells the other person, "This isn't a court case, this is how I live." People who want to keep access to you begin to adjust, people who don't drift toward others who will tolerate their behavior. Your one script here can be, "I hear what you're saying, but I'm not okay with being spoken to that way, so I'm going to step back now." It combines acknowledgement, a clear line, and a simple exit. Consider a boyfriend in Chicago who raises his voice during disagreements. His partner has always tried to calm him down by over-explaining and reassuring him that she's not attacking him, just asking for change. Every time, he ends the argument with, "That's just how I talk, you're too sensitive." After learning this rule, the next time his voice starts to climb, she waits for a pause and says, "I hear what you're saying, but I'm not okay with being spoken to that way, so I'm going to step back now." Then she literally steps away, she ends the call or leaves the apartment to go for a walk. She doesn't answer follow-up texts that keep the same tone. She replies later when things are calm. Over time, he has a choice: adjust his approach or lose access to her when he chooses to escalate. Your tiny action today is to decide one situation where you will use this line, maybe the next time someone raises their voice, makes a cutting joke, or sends you a disrespectful message. Visualize yourself saying it once and then physically stepping away, ending the call, or pausing the conversation. A crucial part of holding your standard is controlling your availability instead of punishing people with silent treatment. The claim here is, set clear response windows and stick to them, so you're not constantly at other people's mercy. You decide when you answer, not your anxiety. This works because constant availability teaches others to treat your time as expandable. When you always respond instantly, late, or inconsistently, you signal that your schedule is negotiable, even when your words say you're busy. By choosing response windows, times of day when you check texts, email, or DMs, you create a predictable pattern that protects your focus and your mood. People may not love it at first, but they'll adapt, and those who refuse are showing you their priorities. Your one script for setting a response window can be, "Just so you know, I usually reply between your times, so if I'm quiet outside that, I'll get back to you then." It's factual, not apologetic. Imagine a woman in Austin who's talking to several people on a dating app while working full-time and taking night classes. She feels guilty if she doesn't reply to messages within minutes, even when she's in class or exhausted. She decides, I'll check messages from 12 to 12:30 p.m. and 8 to 8:30 p.m. only. When a new match starts sending follow-up messages like, after 10 minutes, she sends, just so you know, I usually reply between noon and 8 in the evening, so if I'm quiet outside that, I'll get back to you then. Some people relax and match her pace. Others complain or demand more. She doesn't change her window for them. As weeks go on, she notices she's less burned out and more present in her actual life. Your tiny action today is to pick one app, text, Slack, or a dating app, and choose 2 specific daily windows when you'll check and respond. Tell at least one person who often expects instant replies, using your script, and then stick to your window for the next 3 days. Another key piece of the walk-away rule is refusing to debate your standard. The claim is, you stop justifying why your boundary exists, and you start calmly repeating the fact that it does. You are open to feedback about logistics, but your basic standard is not on trial. This works because endless explaining usually invites cross-examination. The moment you start defending your standard, the other person steps into the role of judge. They'll ask why, question your past, compare you to others, or accuse you of being too much. You end up trying to convince them that your line is reasonable, which quietly hands them power over your life. When you hold to "this is just how I live," you're taking responsibility for your choices, not requesting permission. Your one script for this is, I understand you might see it differently, but this is simply how I choose to live. That sentence acknowledges differences without reopening the negotiation. Picture a man in Vancouver whose family expects him to lend money every time someone is in a shortfall, even though it keeps him stressed and behind on his own bills. He decides his standard is, I don't lend money that will put me under pressure. When his cousin calls asking for a small loan that would wipe out his rent buffer, he says, I'm not able to lend that amount. I'm keeping a buffer for my own bills. The cousin responds, you've changed, you think you're better than us now. Instead of launching into his whole history, he replies, I understand you might see it differently, but this is simply how I choose to live. He stays calm, doesn't raise his voice, and doesn't send a long follow-up text. The cousin may stay angry in the short term, but he has honored his standard. Your tiny action today is to think of one area where you keep over-explaining your boundaries, money, time, physical affection, holidays, and write out that one sentence in your words, I understand you might see it differently, but this is simply how I choose to live. Practice typing it once or twice so it feels accessible when you need it. To use the walk-away rule, you also need a calm exit, not a dramatic storm out. The claim is, you will leave situations with steady energy, clear words, and minimal commentary, so the focus stays on your standard, not your performance. You're excited to protect your peace, not to send a message. This works because high drama gives disrespectful people something to latch onto. If you slam doors, send rage texts, or launch into a long speech, the attention shifts from how they acted to how you reacted. They say, see, you're overreacting, you're crazy, and the original issue gets buried. A calm exit, by contrast, leaves your message unmistakable. You simply do not stay where your standard is not respected. Over time, that consistency reshapes how people approach you. Your one script for a calm exit is, I'm going to step away from this now, and we can talk again when it's respectful. It's short. It plants a condition, respect. Think of someone in New York sharing an apartment with roommates. One roommate has a habit of making sarcastic comments about their appearance and dating life in front of others. One evening, after a long day, the comments escalate in the living room while everyone is hanging out. The old response would be to laugh it off, sit there burning inside, or explode. Instead, they look at the roommate, say, I'm going to step away from this now, and we can talk again when it's respectful, then quietly take their things and go to their room or leave the apartment for a walk. They don't slam anything. They don't post cryptic stories. The next morning, the roommate wants access to them again. If the comments repeat, they repeat the pattern, one sentence, then exit. Your tiny action today is to identify one situation where you might need a calm exit, maybe a group chat, a family dinner, or a video call. Visualize yourself saying that exact line, then muting, leaving, or physically walking away, and write down ahead of time what you'll do with your body so it's not a surprise to you. The walk-away rule also applies to time and money commitments. The claim is, you will not keep extending yourself financially or with your schedule when someone repeatedly ignores your limits. If they keep crossing the line, you will stop offering what you can't afford to give, no matter how they react. This works because overgiving to people who don't respect your limits creates quiet resentment and burnout. In many North American cities, time and money are already tight. When you keep saying yes to extra shifts, unpaid overtime, quick favors, or covering someone's share, you train people to see your resources as infinite. When you clearly state what you can do and then stop when they push past it, you retrain the relationship. Some people will adapt and stay, others, who mainly valued you for what you give, will fade out. Your script here can sound like, I'm able to help within this limit, but I won't go beyond it. It's straightforward and doesn't attack anyone's character. Imagine a woman in Montreal who has been covering extra childcare hours for her sister just this once 4 months. Each time, her sister promises it's the last time, then calls again. The woman finally says, I can watch the kids on Fridays until 6, but I can't do evenings after that. A few weeks later, her sister calls at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday with another emergency plea. She replies, I'm able to help within this limit, but I won't go beyond it. Then she holds the line, even when her sister protests. The first few times are uncomfortable and guilt-heavy. Over time, her sister either rearranges her life or finds other options. The women's schedule, stress levels, and sense of self-respect stabilize. Your tiny action today is to pick one area: rides, money, favors, childcare, work overtime, where you know you're overgiving. Decide a clear limit you can live with this month and write your version of that script. Commit to using it the next time a request crosses that limit. Finally, you need to bring the walk-away rule into your digital life, where a lot of disrespect hides behind screens. The claim is, you will hold the same standard for texts, DMs, and comments that you hold in person, and you will walk away, mute, block, or leave when someone shows you who they are there. This works because online communication often feels less real, so people say things they'd never say face to face. If you treat digital disrespect as not a big deal, you absorb microcuts all day, rude comments, late-night drunk texts, sexual messages you didn't ask for, people ghosting and returning when they're bored. Your nervous system doesn't care that it's just online, it reacts as if those things happened in your actual living room. Applying your standard here protects your attention and mood just as much as in-person boundaries. Your one script might be, I don't stay in conversations where I'm being insulted or sexualized, so I'm ending this here. Then you follow through. Think of someone in Los Angeles using Instagram and dating apps. A match starts out charming, then shifts quickly into explicit messages after a few days, even after being asked to slow down. They send one more graphic message. Instead of replying with a lecture or nervous laughter, the person sends, I don't stay in conversations where I'm being insulted or sexualized, so I'm ending this here. Then they unmatch and, if necessary, block on social media. On Instagram, someone leaves a nasty comment under a photo. Rather than defending themselves in a long thread, they delete the comment and, if it continues, block. They are not playing host to disrespect in their own digital spaces. Your tiny action today is to identify one account, chat, or thread that constantly leaves you feeling small, anxious, or disrespected. Decide in advance whether you will mute, unfriend, unfollow, or block, and pair that with your script so you can send it once if needed before you quietly walk away. Let's pull this together into one North American story so you can see the walk-away rule in motion. Picture Alex, a 33-year-old in Denver working in tech support and dating after a long relationship. For most of his life, he has tolerated small disrespects because he hates conflict. At work, he answers Slack messages at all hours. In dating, he accepts late cancellations and jokes about his job being entry-level. With family, he loans money he doesn't have. The result, he's always tired, resentful, and silently angry with himself. After reflecting, he writes his one-sentence standard, my standard is that I stay in relationships and conversations where I'm treated with basic respect. He copies it to his phone and reads it each morning. He also settles on his two-step script, I'm not okay with that. If it happens again, I'll step back from this. Lastly, he chooses his calm exit line, I'm going to step away from this now, and we can talk again when it's respectful. At work, his manager pings him at 11:15 p.m. with, need you to jump on a quick call. Alex has already decided his response window is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. The next day, he says, just so you know, I usually reply between 8 and 6, so if I'm quiet outside that, I'll get back to you then. When a late ping comes again the following week, he doesn't answer until morning. The pattern becomes clear. The late messages don't vanish overnight, but they reduce, and his stress eases. In dating, he meets someone through an app. The first few dates are fine, but they arrive late 3 times in a row with casual excuses and make a joke about his job being basic. On the third late arrival, they add, "Relax, you're lucky I'm even free tonight." Alex feels that old pull to swallow it. Instead, he says, "My standard is that I stay in relationships and conversations where I'm treated with basic respect." When they roll their eyes and say he's being dramatic, he adds his 2-step line, "I'm not okay with that. If it happens again, I'll step back from this." The next week, they cancel at the last minute with a casual text and no apology. Alex replies, "I'm going to step away from this now, and we can talk again when it's respectful," then stops engaging. He unmatches and moves on. Painful, yes, but clean. With money, his brother asks for another loan just until payday, a pattern that's been going on for years. This time, Alex says, "I'm able to help within this limit, but I won't go beyond it," naming an amount that doesn't threaten his rent. When his brother protests and calls him selfish, Alex replies, "I understand you might see it differently, but this is simply how I choose to live." He doesn't send screenshots of his budget. He doesn't argue. The call ends awkwardly, but Alex sleeps better that night. Weeks later, Alex notices something measurable. His phone is quieter at night, his work messages are calmer, and the people still in his life either already respected his standard or adjusted when they realized he was serious. He didn't become a different person, he just shifted from fearing loss to honoring his own line and walking away when it was crossed. The heart of the walk-away rule is simple: you stop tolerating ongoing disrespect just because you're afraid of losing someone or something. Instead, you define a 1-sentence standard, speak it clearly once, reinforce it with a 2-step pattern, and then let your feet, your phone, and your calendar show what you will and won't accept. You move from trying to control other people's reactions to taking full responsibility for your own choices. You began by turning a vague feeling of "I don't like this" into one clear line: "My standard is that I stay in relationships and conversations where I'm treated with basic respect." You then built a 2-step enforcement pattern: 1, notice, then changed behavior, so your boundary became real in work messages, dating interactions, and family dynamics. You learned to respond to disrespect once without entering a courtroom-style debate, to hold your response windows so your time and nervous system are protected, to exit situations calmly with a simple line about respect, to set limits around money and favors, and to bring the same standard into your digital life so your feeds and chats don't become places of quiet self-betrayal. Finally, you saw how all of this can play out in a realistic North American life, where jobs, rent, and relationships all pull on your fear of loss. To lock this in, start with this today: write or refine your 1-sentence standard in your own words, put it somewhere you'll see it, and read it out loud 3 times so your body gets familiar with it. Next, choose one script in one situation at work, in dating, with family, or online, where you will use it the very next time a line is crossed, and visualize yourself following it with a calm exit if needed. Then, pick a single digital or real space where you feel constantly disrespected, decide whether you'll mute, block, leave, or limit it, and take that concrete action before the day ends. When you're ready for what comes next, look for teaching on how to stop over-explaining your boundaries, so your standards stay clear, short, and firm even when people push back.